Who is there? Republican Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas, a member of both the Senate Finance and Senate Budget Committees. Senator, thank you for your patience in waiting for us to have this conversation. We wanted to keep an ear on what the president said, and hopefully that informs our conversation now that you're with us. Is the president taking the right angle here that forget a vote or making a deal? He won't even sit down to talk with leaders until the government is back open. Is that your stand as well?
Absolutely. I think the president is very clear the Republican Party is unified here at this moment. The way we look at this is Chuck Schumer and the Democrats have taken the federal government hostage. And their ransom is $1.5 trillion. That's what they're wanting, an additional $1.5 trillion added to our debt. And what we believe is if you pay that ransom, they'll just be back. They'll keep committing that crime and crime over and again. The Republicans want to open the government, but we also want some level of responsible spending, continuing a budget where we're going to spend $7 trillion but only take in $5 trillion this year. This is unsustainable. So we need to work towards that balanced budget. I think we're pretty dug in here.
Senator, you said you're dug in. The president said that you're dug in. I'm curious, if the Democrats did agree to end the shutdown, if there is a vote on ACA subsidies, would you be in favor of that?
Oh, I would be in favor of having the vote, but what I'd be in favor of is fixing the real problem here. So my friends across the aisle have to be committed to fixing three major problems within the ACA. Number one is there's about $25 billion of fraud. Number two, premiums that have doubled in the last 5 years are going to go up 20% this year. And finally, the average deductible is about $5,000. The average deductible $5,000 for a family making $60,000. That's not access to health care. We can't keep throwing good money after bad money. So I want to fix the plan, but we need to open the government first.
We should note to our listeners and viewers that you are actively a practicing physician, Senator, and so your input on healthcare policy is important to us. But I just want to get the 30,000-foot view here because there's been a vote just about every day in the last 21 days, with the exception of weekends in the Senate. It's looking like, based on what we're hearing, there may not be a vote on the continuing resolution today. Realizing this is Groundhog Day, you're living through, it's the same result every time. But would that indicate that we're getting closer or further away from resolution?
I don't think either. The Democrats, to your point, 11 times they voted against opening the government. I think most significantly, they recently voted against military spending. That's what has people wound up a lot back home. People back home are concerned about the paying the military. They're concerned about the national debt as well. I don't think it's either or. I think we're going to try to turn to maybe some other different ways to ask the Democrats to pay for government employees, the Capitol Police, the military, some of those types of things as well. Maybe that's the compromise we could get to right now.
Now, this is obviously something that could come up in elections. There are people that are not getting paid. There are people frustrated. There are people that think you should stay dug in. We saw a lot of people this past weekend at the, quote, No Kings protests throughout the country. We talked to Texas Senator Ted Cruz about that yesterday. Here's what he had to say.
Look, unquestionably, we should take political peril seriously. There is a lot of energy. There is a lot of anger on the left, and elections can be dangerous when one side is mobilized, is angry. And look, angry, energized voters show up to vote. And I do worry about just ordinary voters who are happy or complacent, who say, gosh, Trump won, things are good, I don't need to show up and vote. There's no doubt if one side shows up and the other doesn't, that leads to a bad election.
Senator, do you agree with Senator Cruz's comments on that?
I'm sure parts of it. Most importantly, next November will be the economy. This will probably be something people seldom even remember that the government was shut down by then. They're going to think about their economy. They're going to think, do I have a good job? Do I have a roof over my head? Is my family safer? That's what they'll be focused on next November. And I think that our one big beautiful bill is going to lead to those opportunities. We're cutting taxes. We're cutting federal spending. That's going to lead to lower interest rates. So I'm very optimistic about the future. I still think the next election will be about the economy, and this will be in the rear view mirror by then.
We're always compelled to ask you about your farmers in Kansas, along with health care when we spend time together, Senator. And there's an interesting wrinkle in this idea of bailing out Argentina. The president says that the U.S. might begin importing Argentine beef to help lower costs for consumers. You know how expensive it is to get a Kansas City steak these days. And I'm just wondering, in a state that's so closely associated with prime USDA grade beef, what does this mean for your farmers and ranchers?
Well, first of all, I still think the price of beef is one of the greatest values out there in the world. To go out and enjoy a good steak for less than $100, what else can you do for $100 in this world right now? But look, if we imported all the beef that Argentina made, it would make up less than 0.1% of what we make here. They have a very small market. We have a shortage of hamburger. Right now, we're not able to import beef from Mexico because of a screwworm issue. That's another topic as well. So this won't come close to replacing what we were importing from Mexico. What's going to bring the prices of beef down is it needs to rain. We had the smallest cattle herd that we've had in my professional lifetime because of lack of rain. So we need to grow that cow herd. It's going to take 2 or 3 years to do that.
Were they serving Argentinian beef at the Rose Garden Club today, Senator? Or are you a strip guy or a ribeye? I have to know.
KC strip, medium rare with a Coors Light.
Good answer.
Senator, I'm curious, have you heard from any of the farmers in your area that are concerned about this beef issue?
No, this is the best cattle market we've ever had in our lifetime. The markets are overreacting to what the president said the other day. Certainly, the big picture of groceries, I just saw it's up 2.7% over the past year. That's a shadow of the 22% we saw under Joe Biden right now. So the president is focused on bringing groceries down. That's where that comment came from. The problems that the farmers are having right now are high interest rates, the cost of fertilizers, the cost of seeds, those types of things. They're glad that diesel fuel is coming down. Gasoline back home now about $2.50 a gallon, if you can believe that or not, as well. So it's the input costs, and then we want E15 year round. If we went to E15 ethanol 15%, it would more than double what we are exporting to all the rest of the world. So their focus right now is on getting year round E15.
Republican Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas, thanks for being so patient and waiting for us. We appreciate your time.